Bonjour, bonjour all. It is Tuesday, April 15th, 2025. And I'm sure you all recall 6 years ago today is when the fire in Notre Dame happened. The fire broke out at 6:18 p.m. and the alarm went off 2 minutes later at 6:20. So it is amazing that 6 years later, on that very day, we are back inside. So I came here really early. It's about 7:40 in the morning. There's actually a pretty long line. You can see the line just in front. To the right is for Mass. They don't always do this line because people have been not playing by the rules and have been going into this line just to get into the church. But because it is first thing in the morning, that line for Mass is there. So I'm going in to go to Mass to give you guys a little walk around the outside, which we haven't done in 4 months because it was all about the inside. But to give you a little update on the inside, it is also, just like it was 6 years ago, it is also Holy Week. So it was on Monday of Holy Week that the fire happened. Today is Tuesday. And so we're going to go inside and check it out. But it is pretty exciting that we are back inside 6 years later. Originally 5 years ago, tomorrow was the day they hoped to have opened it, but because of COVID, delayed a little bit. But I'm gonna go get in line for Mass, go in there and bring you guys a little bit more. Mass just finished and I'm sitting here underneath the transept, and all I could think about was how 6 years ago the entire center transept with the keystone at one point broke through, as well as the ones surrounding it, and the spire came crashing through. Today looks like it never happened. They did mark the occasion during Mass, mentioned the fire 6 years ago. I'm still in the Saint-Georges Chapel. I love this little reminder. I don't know how long these will be here, but probably for at least a year. The wonderful photos of the different builders groups. So you have masons, architects, restorers, painting restorers, everything. And then the picture at the base is of General Georges Laurent, who was in charge of the project and brought out of retirement by the president. He once was in charge of the Légion d'honneur and also was the chief of staff for Jacques Chirac. And so he came out of retirement at the request of President Macron to take over and be the liaison between the project and the government. He tragically died in August of 2023 in a fall while celebrating his 75th birthday. So they have this beautiful photo and plaque here of him underneath the fantastic fresco of Saint Georges, and then behind it we have the stained glass of Saint Eustache. But I just lit some candles. I always usually do it at Saint Geneviève and Saint Denis, but today I did it at each of the little chapels here. open the treasury early today, maybe because of Holy Week. We'll do another video going through everything and the details in here, but because it just opened and there's not many people, I'll give you a quick walk through. Everything in here, the inside was restored beautifully and cleaned, even though it didn't have any damage from the fire, but that's okay. This is the tunic of Saint-Denis, or excuse me, Saint-Louis. Saint-Denis on my mind. Saint-Louis was wearing this when he carried the crown of thorns to Paris. And this is my favorite reliquary for the crown of thorns, designed by Viollet-le-Duc. I love this one. And look at Saint-Louis there, holding the crown of thorns. I just love it. It is really beautiful. There's beautiful paintings. The stained glass in here is fantastic. Former bishops. They used to have a book, and I still have the original book from before the fire, but they changed all the numbers and everything in here. But what I also love about this is in the back, you have the Empress Helena and Emperor Baudouin. Empress Helena is the one that was said to have found the crown of thorns and the other relics. These are other pieces designed by Viollet-le-Duc. But out here, really quickly, to show you, this is the pieces done for the reopening. And this is the amazing piece done by Jean-Charles de Cassavajac. I love him. And the liturgical pieces done for the opening. But my other favorite thing, I have a lot of favorites, is back here, down this little hallway. The stained glass is all the story of Saint-Geneviève. My homegirl, my favorite. This opens a little bit later than the church because this is the hallway that the priests use to come into do mass. And so they normally have this closed off. That's why it doesn't open until a little later. But this right here, these very sadly are not in the church itself anymore. They used to be. They used to be back in the chapel of Saint Georges, but they moved them into the treasury. And these are the candlesticks that Napoleon Bonaparte took from the church in Arras, and they were silver. He had them gold plated, and they were on the altar at his coronation. And you could see that in the painting by Jacques-Louis David, plus the crucifix. And these are other elements all used at his coronation, December 2nd, 1804. Just on the outside here, so you can see all the work going on. Right now, most of the work on the outside is happening on the spire and the tower. So they're finishing the spire, the bottom part of it. It's called the open work. So that is what they are working on right now. And because all of the details on that are pretty intricate, takes a lot longer than it does to do the top sides. Besides, you also have a lot of space they're working on. So that is what they're doing now. It's supposed to be done hopefully by next month. As they get pieces of it done, they do take part of the scaffolding off. So hopefully maybe in the next week or two, we'll have more scaffolding down. So I'll keep checking on it. But for the few people I know that love the clocks, this one is, you can still see this one. It was covered for a bit. Now it's uncovered. And we'll have to see if we can see the other ones on the other side. But if you recall, since I am doing this on the 6th anniversary of the fire, I mentioned earlier it was 6:18 p.m. when the fire broke out, and then at 6:20 is when the alarm went off. The second alarm went off at 6:43, and it was officially declared a fire. The 7:10 p.m. is when people started to see the smoke plume coming out. So, you know, that was close to about an hour afterwards. And then at 7:20 p.m., the mayor of Paris, Anne Hidalgo, tweets that there was a terrible fire happening. At 7:40, the fire had spread to the spire itself. And then at 7:53 p.m., the spire collapsed. It broke in half and collapsed into the church. And at 8:02 p.m., the entire roof collapses. So it wasn't a very long time. You only had under 2 hours that pretty much we lost the entire roof. They have this little plaques up here they've added in the last few weeks, kind of telling you about what they're going to do afterwards. This is going to be part of the space. It's going to be underneath that you'll be able to see over here on this side. And it was raining this morning, but it's turning into a lovely little morning here. I was inside the church for a few hours, sat through Mass, and then the treasury, as you saw, was open a little earlier than normal. We'll do a whole video of that later, as I mentioned, going into a lot of the details of everything in there. But I think I'll wait till maybe after the busy season for that. Even though a tiny majority of the people that come into the church go in there. I remember years ago, Rick Steve said, don't bother, don't go in there. Really wish they wouldn't say things like that, but that's fine. That's good for everybody else that wants to go, I guess. So you can see that the hangers have been all removed on the south side. All the hangers that were put under the buttress. They had a little extra glimpse this week. The La Croix online magazine had a special little visit to the church to see into the new fire suppression, which is, of course, you know, a hot topic today on the anniversary. They added 7 new locations onto the church to get water. Water can now spray all the way up 100 meters up. The top of the spire is 96 meters. So the force of the water is much higher. There's more hydrants in there and massive tubing that's going up just behind this tower on both sides, on the north and south tower. And then there's a pipe on the other side of the transepts. And so that is, so they've basically increased it 6-fold of water onto the island, and that not only was good for the church, but it was also good for the people living here. I love how the roof has already been pretty well patinaed. We did have dark pink cherry blossoms over here this year on the side, but they are working on the towers. I don't know if anybody's working on those today, but they have been working on the towers. They should be open by the summer. They are going to, you will now go up the south tower, and then you'll come down the north tower. Before it was the opposite. And then they've added on the south tower some other platforms to stop, so you could be able to see, I see a guy up there. So you could see into the roof, you could see into the bells. There's also going to be a landing that's going to have a little bit more about the history of the building itself. And I also really want to do one, the next on my list is to do for the stained glass, but I kind of want to wait until we get the scaffolding on the back down. So we'll see how long that's going to take. So I could do all of the stained glass. But let's head around. There's a lot of people right here, so I'm going to head to just a little bit, just back on the other side to some of the people. She's looking pretty good. As I have mentioned before, most of the scaffolding that's up there is just to get them up and down. So you really don't see a lot left on this side, except for, of course, around the spire. And then you have the little chunk of scaffolding over here, and that's because that's where the elevators are that get them up to the top. I'm waiting for some of these temporary things, units to come apart, but that might be a bit. See over here, see where just to the left of the sign, it says 1910. That was the height of the flood. But then it was higher above ground over on the sides, because the water of that flood in 1910 actually came from below the ground. in from the subways and the basements and the caves, everything. So it came up. So it was actually, the city was flooded before the banks of the Seine were overflowing. But I'm going to get you over here. We'll get a good view from the side, and then I'll take you to the back. I think the left bank, looking up to the south side, is maybe the best view. Especially with all those beautiful green leaves coming back. You could really hear them banging around in there. The pace of the workers definitely slowed down once it reopened in December on the outside, which rightfully so. They definitely deserved a nice little break. But they, for the most part, they aren't here on the Saturdays. It used to be 6 days a week. Now I rarely see anybody on the project on Saturdays, and which is good for them. They work pretty doggone hard. Today, because it is the anniversary, there's a special tribute going on at the Élysée Palace. The President of France is awarding 100 different people that have worked on the project the Légion d'honneur. There's different rankings for that. And Philippe Jost, who took over for Georges Alain, he is getting one of the highest honors. And, excuse me, my Philippe Villeneuve had better be getting the highest of all honors. But they just mentioned he was there. So I don't know how they picked out 100 of the 2,000 people that worked. I personally think all 2,000 of them should have a special award. But I'm not sure. They don't have a full list. They basically just mentioned Remy, Philippe, both Philippe's architects that had worked on it. But they should definitely give one to every single person. It is April, so it is very busy here in Paris, busier than normal, which is going to be this entire year. So if you are coming, make sure you are booking reservations and tickets to things that you really, really want to see in advance. Depending on the site, whether it's the Louvre or Eiffel Tower or Versailles, they all have different points when they put tickets on sale. Could be anywhere between 30 to 90 days. So double check or contact me to help plan your trip. But this is one of my favorite little spots here. You could get a good uninterrupted view. So it's really hard inside to see the stained glass that's on the chevet, which is the whole back side, because the scaffolding is up there. Depending on, today is pretty cloudy when I went in, so you really couldn't see a lot. But if it's a beautiful blue sky, direct sunny day, sun's definitely hitting the back, it is really gorgeous and all lit up. I was looking at my photos from those first few nights I came in, and because when we were only allowed to come in at night that first week, and I was here 4 or 5 days, and you came in at 4 o'clock, 3:45, 4 o'clock. So it was December, so it got dark pretty early. And then it took until I think the 10 days after it opened to come in the morning and get to see the sun rising and see all the stained glass again. And it was pretty stunning. But now what they're going to be doing, they're going to be still be working on this for the outside for at least 2 more years. They're doing work on the flying buttresses. They're going to do work on the sacristy that's right here. That's where I was just inside. The little building that's right behind the pink cherry blossoms. They're going to redo the roof and do some work on the outside. And of course, finish up the spire. And then after the building, outside the building is complete, then they will do the gardens. I don't know if they're also going to clean, because on the other side, on the north side especially, when you look at the transept, it's all very, very dark and dirty. So I don't know if they're going to plan on cleaning that. It's probably just a budgetary. They had 150 euros of the 840 left over when the building reopened in December. So they, that is what they're using to finish up the project. I'm going to get you past all these people and down to the end. There she is. Who would have thought 6 years ago today that we would be back inside and looking at the roof again and the spire, although she's hidden behind a crane. But who would have thought that? I know there was a whole lot of people. There were quite the naysayers when the president announced we'd be back inside in 5 years. It was 5 years and 7 months. But what people normally seem to forget is about 11 months after the fire, a pandemic happened, and of course closed the site for more than 6 months off and on. They could not work on it. So had it not been for COVID, I do believe we would have been in there exactly a year ago tomorrow. It was the original plan. They wanted to open it 5 years and a day with mass that morning. So it's very exciting that we get to be back in here today. There she is. I can see her a little bit better. And the rooster is back. And not only is the rooster back, but one of my favorites, my girl, Saint-Geneviève, is down there on the next bridge, the Pont de la Tournelle. The tall column, obelisk looking thing is Saint-Geneviève. So she's there, created by Paul Landowski, who also did Christ the Redeemer. So she's there protecting the city. And I do believe, because there was a piece of Saint-Geneviève, a relic of Saint-Geneviève and Saint-Denis up there at the top of the spire in the rooster, I do believe that's why she's still standing today. Because Saint-Geneviève is the patron saint of Paris. She has protected it and she has saved it hundreds of times, 3 times while she was alive, hundreds of times since, and I do believe that is why we still have it today. So there you go. Happy 6-year anniversary. This year it is a much happier anniversary. We've also returned to be back inside. And if you do come down here, hop into this museum that's right over here. Sort of a museum. It is the Deportation Museum, and it is a free place to visit. It is absolutely beautiful. Here's another 1910 marker right there. It is an absolute beautiful, somber, heart-wrenching place to visit. It always takes me a few days to recover after I've been here, but I think it's an important thing to come visit. And it is very beautiful and very beautifully done. So there you go. And here's one more little view. Oops. Not sure why I did that. All right, thank you guys. And make sure, if you haven't listened to this week's podcast, we go into 2 more details of the chapels, which I have done here on YouTube, but on the podcast we could go into much, much deeper on all the details because we have time. All right, everybody, thank you so much. Check out the podcast, Paris History of Becca Hemingway on La Vie Creative, and I will see you very soon.